So, Ginger.
Yeah?
You know how we wanted to start a podcast, but we were having trouble coming up with a topic?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my pitch. The topic of the podcast is us trying to come up with the topic for the podcast.
What? Like we pitch each other podcast ideas and that's the podcast?
Yeah, exactly. We could call it, What Should Our Podcast Be About?
Miles, that's really stupid. Let's do it.
What should this song be about? I'm trying to figure it out. What should this song be about? Could you perhaps help me out? I've had a moment of doubt. What should this song be about? Welcome to What Should Our Podcast Be About? A podcast where we try to figure out what this podcast that you're listening to right now should be about. I'm Miles Grover.
And I'm Ginger Parham.
And today we are talking about some ideas.
For podcasts.
For podcasts, yes. Do you have any ideas? Do you want to start? Since I started last time.
Yeah, I can start. I only came up with one idea while I was sitting on the train. But I think it's a pretty good one.
And as we all know, only train ideas are allowed on this podcast.
Just wanted to lend some context to my process. Something.
Get some New York cred. Maybe.
Yeah, get some New York cred. I mean, I didn't say it was a New York train, but...
Yeah, but where else has trains? Nowhere. Literally nowhere.
Literally nowhere. I only came up with one idea, but I think it's a pretty good idea. So, you know how there's podcasts where they'll do like an after show or a review, talk about the episode of a television show. After episodes air, there'll be like
a talkback show.
Like a talkback show, yeah. So I was thinking that, except we just completely make up the TV show. Like we make up the episodes and who's in the show and everything, and we review the television show that we've made up and cast.
Okay, yeah. So it's like totally made up TV show, but we act as if it's real, or we pretend. Yeah, I feel like it should be known to people listening that it's fake.
Yeah,
right?
like kind of like a
go ahead.
Night Vale kind of thing.
Yeah, like a Night Vale kind of thing. Yeah, like.
We are very distracted right now by our son being nearby and cute.
Yes, our third co-host is here as well, Rory, and he is 3 months old, and he's in a little jumper thing, so he probably will start making noise at some point. But yeah, anyway, yeah, that's a pretty good idea. Like, so we would have to come up with like who's in the show, what kind of plots. I mean, probably ideally we would just improvise everything, kind of building off each other as we talk about the latest episode, like.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, can you believe that Will Arnett was in this episode and he ran in with a chainsaw and attacked a bear?
Can you believe that Valerie kicked her cat?
Okay, yeah. And that
was uncalled for.
That is a little bit... You're saying that would be an escalation from the previous thing that I said where Will Arnett ran in with a chainsaw.
Yeah. Yes.
Maybe
I mean, did he kill the bear? Because I guess that would be a bit of an escalation. But if he just ran in with a chainsaw...
I mean, it's even crazier that the bear was played by Nicolas Cage.
That was weird.
But he was uncredited cameo.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's a pretty good idea. I like that.
Sorry, I'm still on the Nicolas Cage thing.
I mean, we've seen him play a bear.
That's true.
Sort of.
Briefly.
In Wicker Man, the terrible / wonderful Wicker Man he's in.
Yeah, that was very brief though, right?
Yeah, I mean, he runs around in a bear suit for a while. He punches an old lady, I believe.
Oh, right. Right.
Yeah.
God, that movie was terrible and wonderful.
Not the bees. Killing me won't bring back your goddamn honey. Anyway, yes. So basically that, but a podcast.
How about a podcast where we just so you know Till Death Do Us Part?
Yeah.
What if we did that but Wicker Man?
Where we watch Wicker Man every year.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we're going to probably do that anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a few years.
That's true.
Or how about a podcast where we just talk about Nicolas Cage movies?
We did just watch, I think, his latest one, the one where he plays himself, kind of.
But that one was actually pretty good.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, half of his movies are pretty good and half of them are terrible, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like the thing from Community where Abed can't, like, decide if Nicolas Cage is good or bad, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, we could talk about Vampire's Kiss, which...
True.
Is really one of his masterpieces, I feel.
So we could just do a podcast where we just cover the entire oeuvre of Nicolas Cage.
Yeah. There's a lot of them I still haven't seen.
Yeah, I mean, he's done lots of movies. That would last us a good while at least. Okay, well, that's another idea also. I had an idea.
All right.
Which was, what if we did a podcast about sports, but it's not really about sports, right? For listeners out there, we both don't care about sports at all. But, so this idea is, we call it like the Superb Owl, right? Because the Superb Owl is like the same as the Super Bowl. I mean, spelling wise, but
right.
It's based, right? So it's like us talking about sports stuff where all we've done is like read the title and gotten it completely wrong.
Okay. So like talking about sports but being wrong on purpose?
Completely wrong. Like, oh yeah, we watched the Superb Owl. It was crazy when they threw those owls across the field and then they were eaten by the really big owl or whatever.
Okay, so the most important question I have is this wouldn't require us to watch any sports, right?
Right. If it did, we just would never do this podcast.
Right. Even
if we decided we were going to do this podcast, we just literally wouldn't. Other possibilities are like we think that, like, we talk about the Indy 500, like we think it's a big festival of 500 indie bands.
It should be. It should be.
That'd be a lot of bands.
Yeah. I mean, but
big festival.
But they could all be playing like different stages at the same time. So like you choose what you go to see. Like a South by Southwest kind of thing.
Do they have 500 bands at South by Southwest though? I doubt it, right?
I don't know.
500 is so many bands.
It is a lot of bands. But South by Southwest is usually like over a number of days, isn't it?
I think so. Although I do think it would be funnier if we acted like it was 500 indie bands playing on stages at once, but the stages are close enough that you can hear all of them at the same time.
Yeah, I like that. So apparently South by Southwest, well, according to this is for their current one, their upcoming one for this year.
Okay.
Says nearly 1,400 artists.
What? No, artists. It's not just bands, though, right?
I mean, I think it's just bands. It's a music festival.
Well, it's an art festival. Well, you know what? I don't know anything about South by Southwest, so I don't know why.
It's 6 nights, so
that still seems like a crazy amount of band. But okay, sure. So
yeah,
it's plausible.
This is the same music artist.
Okay.
So.
But back to the.
So yeah, 500's nothing.
At once.
Yeah,
they're all playing at once.
All of the same. In one day.
500 small stages in a circle around the audience.
In one day.
Yeah. At the same time.
How long would the sets be if they're all playing in one day?
No, they're all playing at the same time, so they can all be 2 hours or whatever. It's the same 2 hours, right? They're all playing.
So there's like 250 stages.
There's 500 stages because there's 500 bands.
Okay.
They're playing at once. I don't know why you don't know about the Indy 500. This is a real thing that fans go to. Everyone loves it. Other dumb sport things.
It seems like something I would have heard about. You're right.
Other dumb sports things, maybe like, I don't know, the World Cup. Everybody's competing for like a really cool cup or like a big cup of ramen or something.
Best cup of coffee, maybe?
Is it world in some way? Like WHIR, whatever? World in some way?
Like whirl?
World. Fed up with this world. No, like world, like whirling.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, I assume those words are
So it's just
related.
a cup that's spinning around.
Whirl and whirl, but yeah, maybe it's whirling. I don't know. Maybe it has been whirled. Maybe everybody's competing. Maybe it's like a game of who can whirl it the most. I don't know. Anyway, obviously.
All right. Well.
So yeah. So some.
Okay. Yeah.
Some dumb
But
sports
that could
stuff.
work. That could work.
One downside is, although I don't think we
The
would
podcast idea, not the whirling cup thing.
Right.
I'm not sure how well that would work.
Right. Probably not well. I think one downside is, even if we're not going to watch sports, we do need to like find out about sports stuff, because Indy 500, World Cup, and Super Bowl are about as many things as I can name off the top of my head that are like big sports things.
Yeah, we'd probably have to ask some of our friends that are into sports. Do we have any friends that are into sports?
I think we would probably just Google it.
I guess we could do that too.
Google, what are big sports things?
What big sports things?
Tell me the big sports things. That's how I type into Google. I type tell me before everything. Tell me how to go to facebook.com.
Oh, so you're 50.
Yes.
I see.
Okay, so that's a few ideas. We got the dumb sports thing. We got the TV show, made up TV show thing. We got the Nicolas Cage movies thing. I do have more ideas, but before that, we do have our first fan submission of an idea.
Okay.
Which is from my daughter, Svetlana, who is 11, who will be here next week and probably be on the podcast. But her suggestion this time was, or when I first told her about this podcast that we're working on, was we should do a podcast about the biography of Svetlana.
All right.
So
she's led an exciting life so far.
Yes, she's 11. She lives in suburbia, basically. Like, she has lived a pretty normal life, but maybe, we could always take the approach of just making stuff up, right? Maybe, and I bet she would be into that, actually.
Yeah.
Like, making up stuff that happened in her life that never happened.
What would the podcast be called? Just Biography of Svetlana?
Svetlanography?
Svetlanography?
I don't know.
It doesn't quite roll off the tongue.
No, I hadn't gotten to the point of coming up with a name for it. I don't really think it's going to be our winner, so I don't know that we want to spend too much time on it, but I did think it was kind of funny just in the way that kids are so like self-centered in a lot of ways, right?
I was looking at some of the top podcasts earlier, and there was one called Svetlana.
Okay, who's that? What's that about?
It's about Stalin's daughter.
Oh, right. I forgot that his daughter was also named Svetlana. But anyway, do we have any other ideas?
Really the television show one was it for me this week.
We did have a couple things that we mentioned last week, I think, sort of asides that I wrote down just in case. One was, should we do a podcast about how true crime podcasts are bad? Or how I don't like true crime podcasts?
Oh, about how you hate true crime podcasts?
Right.
That could be kind of fun.
Oh, we also talked about potentially like making up conspiracy theories. Or we talked about weird conspiracy theories, and I was thinking, what if we just made up conspiracy theories? Like a podcast of just... I guess we would basically be starting new conspiracy theories, because that's all conspiracy theories are dumb made up things anyway, I guess.
Right.
So maybe that would actually be harmful to society, and maybe we shouldn't do that.
Yeah, we don't need to help introduce more harmful ideas to society. Society's already, well, at least here in the U.S. especially, doing a pretty bang-up job of that.
Yeah.
I don't know if these smacking sounds are coming through on the microphone.
They probably are. Rory is sucking on his hand over there now.
Very
loudly.
voraciously.
Yep. He sounds like Maggie from The Simpsons. But he seems like he's having a good time.
He likes listening to podcasts.
Yeah, I guess so. One other little idea is just us coming up with silly acronyms for stuff. That's something we
That
talked
could
about
be
last
fun.
time.
Yeah.
So just throwing out a couple little things we talked about. I don't know if they really got much to them, but I think I wanted to mention them. Do you want to circle back on what we think we should continue with? Like,
yeah.
What our ideas?
Yeah. So what have we got? We've got fake sports. We've got fake television show. Fake television review show.
Yes.
Biography of Svetlana.
Nicolas Cage's oeuvre.
Nicolas Cage's
talking
oeuvre,
about
which
that.
I think would be pretty fun. But almost might be too good.
Might be too easy.
Too easy. How fun would it be to listen to? Would you listen to a podcast where people just talked about Nicolas Cage?
Well, there are lots of bad movie podcasts and probably lots of good movie podcasts as well, I would assume.
Yeah.
I'm not really into good movies.
Yeah.
Or at least I don't listen to podcasts about them, but probably both those things exist. So this would be a specific kind of that. And people do. I mean, we listen to the Paul Blart one.
That's true.
But that said, even if it's a good actual podcast idea, is it a good idea for us to talk? Like, will it be fun for us to talk about right now and then probably not actually do?
Right.
Right.
And does it already exist?
It very well may already exist.
It's kind of hard to believe it wouldn't.
I mean, it can't exist in that it would be us watching it and talking about it, whatever
right.
we think about it. But obviously, surely and certainly, people out there have talked about Nicolas Cage movies on podcasts.
Idea for next time, podcasts where we make up words.
Like certainly,
Like
which
certainly.
is very, very good, useful word for sure.
Yeah.
For certainly. I feel like the fake TV show is our best bet right now.
All right.
Do you agree?
Well, I'm on board with that. I mean, it was my idea,
Yeah.
so.
Well, you can not like your own ideas. I do that all the time.
No, that's true. Yeah, no, I think that could be fun.
So what kind of show would it be? Or what kind of show would we act like it would be?
I mean, it could be different week to week.
Right? Yeah,
I think it would be more fun if it was different week to week.
It would be fun. I like the idea of us describing a show and talking about episodes and stuff where, like, if you were watching the show, you would not be able to figure out what genre it was or, like, what the show was really about or what's going on with it and stuff.
What kind of tone they were going for.
Oh, we could also, like, act like it's, like, Doctor Who or, like, a soap opera where it's been going for, like, decades or whatever.
We could record, I think, it could be kind of fun to, like, have a little bit of our podcast be scripted. Because we could, let's play that clip from the episode. And we'd have little clips from our non-existent TV show.
Yeah, although I think...
Like the clip where Will Arnett runs in with the chainsaw and we just play a chainsaw noise and a bear growling or something. That could be fun.
We could get like a clip of Will Arnett saying something.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can find a clip of him yelling.
Yeah.
Just being like, ah, or whatever.
Yeah.
Or I guess we could try to do an impression. Can you do a Will Arnett? I can't do it. I don't think
No.
No. He just has like a deep voice. I don't even know what he sounds like. I mean, I know what he sounds like, but I don't know how to do.
Yeah,
anyway,
I definitely can't do it.
It would be easier we could get a recording of... So that wouldn't really be scripted so much as us pulling weird clips of like random celebrities.
Out of context.
Out of context.
Yeah. Well, I like that idea, especially because, it would be fun to kind of comb through... What's the weirdest thing Will Arnett has said on Arrested Development?
Yeah, or what's that other show where he's Detective Terry Seattle?
Oh, right.
Semi-improvised one.
Murderville,
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's tons of good things we could find.
Yeah.
Dad, no!
We could also, for the show, we could also talk about, if it's a show that's been running for decades or whatever, we could also be like, well, this week we decided to go back and watch a few of the old episodes. Like this one that had Mr. T as a guest star, pitying all these fools or whatever, right?
Right.
Like obviously that's an easy clip to pull. I pity the fool or whatever.
I pity the fool.
Right. Yeah, and that we could pick people that have never done anything together and put them together. Like, oh, remember the time that Mr. T was on an episode with Bette Midler?
I'm so tired, I just want to lie down.
I pity the fool.
Or something,
Right.
you know?
And just like put together weird
and
clips.
just put together weird clips.
So this is turning
That could
into
be
like
kind of
us
fun.
finding weird clips and then pretending that they're from this weird TV show
Yeah.
that we made up. I like that. That's
I like
pretty
that a
fun.
lot.
I mean, I don't have like a source for weird clips, but I bet we could Google it or like look on YouTube and find stuff.
Yeah. Well, and it's great because the less sense it makes, the better, really, right? The more fun it will be.
Yeah. I think we would probably want to do like a synopsis at the beginning of the episode of like
What it was about.
what happened in this episode. Probably have to come up with a title for the episode
Right.
and say it's like episode 37 or episode 77 or whatever, like give it a name and runtime and all that stuff. Maybe not runtime.
Who starred in the episode?
Who stars in the episode, weird cameos, that kind of stuff. Like, what kind of stuff do they do on, like, what kind of boilerplate type stuff do they do on the, like, the pod? Like, I know you've listened to, like, the Handmaid's Tale one. So,
in that one, really, actually, there's a couple of them that I've listened to. Yes, I listened to more than one Handmaid's Tale, as I have problems. But they usually tend to go through it scene by scene.
Yeah.
Which I think makes sense for that show. But I don't know if it would make sense for us.
Right.
Because then we have to have a scene by scene to go through. So I think it would be better to have it structured in a way that we don't actually have to... Because if we have to come up with a plot from beginning to end and then also write out an entire episode...
Right, at that point, we're basically writing a weird TV show ourselves.
Right.
And I do like the idea, I do prefer, I guess, the idea of us kind of making it up as we go along.
Right.
And, like, absolutely not worrying about continuity or, like, ideally ruining continuity as much as possible, right? Like,
Right. Well, that could be fun, too, because then if we're making it up as we go along, then if you say something that happened in the episode, I am forced to respond to it like it actually happened.
Right. Yeah.
And vice versa, which I think is pretty fun.
Yeah, so basically this is like a weird improv prompt, right? But
Right.
I wonder if we will need, I wonder if we can just make it up as we completely make it up, or if we'll want to like at least have a couple of ideas before each episode.
Well, if we're going to play clips, then we have to at least have that planned out ahead of time, right?
Well, no, we don't have to play clips while we're recording. We can just say stuff and then find clips.
Oh, okay.
But it would make more sense to find clips and then say stuff about them, probably. Because, like, I can say, and then Will Arnett runs in, or Mr. T runs in, or, I don't know, the guy from How I Met Your Mother runs in.
That could be a fun
Josh
challenge.
Radnor runs in and yells that his pants have fallen off. There may or may not be a clip of that out there somewhere.
That could be a fun challenge afterwards, because if I'm like, oh yeah, let's play that clip.
Right. It could be fun.
Then we've just screwed ourselves.
It could also be funny, though, like, to be super low fidelity about it. Like think about, like, Space Ghost Coast to Coast, right? How
Right.
on that cartoon, they basically just had, like, 5 poses for each character that were animated, and they just switched to whichever one was kind of close enough.
Yeah.
And I bring that up to say, like, that was actually a funny part of that show, which was born out of only having a few poses or whatever. So
Right.
if we only have, like, if we have to clip together Josh Radnor saying my pants fell off, he'll be like, my pants fell off. Or, right? Like,
Right,
it'll
okay.
sound terrible, but that'll be part of the humor of
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
My pants!
For some reason, I have in my head that it should be like Twin Peaks.
Oh, Twin Peaks.
That it should be Twin Peaks-ish somehow.
The show.
The show that we were making up
Right.
should be like, but I'm saying that based only on vibes because I've only actually seen like sort of random parts of Twin Peaks, and I think there's a newer one. I haven't seen any of that.
I haven't seen the newer one. I have seen the older one, but it's been a while.
I guess
I do remember Log Lady.
I guess I'm like thinking like the vibe should be like a little bit creepy, a little bit funny. Well, ideally the podcast is funny,
Right.
but like a little bit, like the show is a little bit humorous, but also the show takes itself seriously, but it's also kind of creepy and like, I don't know, those kind of David Lynch vibes, if that makes sense. Although honestly, I'm not even that familiar with David Lynch's work. I mean, I've seen a couple of his movies and the old dude and stuff, but
Yeah, I mean, well, to be honest, I've watched David Lynch. I wouldn't call myself like the biggest David Lynch fan. Some of it's creepy, funny in a this is kind of creepy and weird sort of way.
yeah, like weird in a way that's very specific but hard to describe.
So, but then do we want to do the same show every week? Because we talked about, having it be different every week.
Yeah, well, I think you can't. I think on some level you can't do a different show every week if you're saying it's the same show, because everything you do contributes to an overall thing that is that show, right? So,
But it could be a different vibe every week.
But even if it has a different vibe every week, that contributes to an overall main like an overall vibe of a vibe that changes and stuff, if that makes sense. And I guess maybe that's kind of part of what I'm thinking about with David Lynch stuff. Like I feel like it tonally is different like it can be tonally jarring in ways, and maybe that's kind of what I'm thinking for this.
Okay, that makes sense.
I'm also somewhat thinking of Night Vale and just like their kind of creepy world building. I like creepy stuff, I guess, to some extent, or I think creepy stuff's funny, so I think like some amount of that. I guess I'm also picturing like a soap opera type plot for it as well.
What if we also had occasionally had like fake interviews with actors and actresses from the show, and we had to clip things that they've said in other interviews, or kind of a Space Ghost kind of thing, I guess.
Right, so like like the clip thing we were talking about, but on steroids, basically.
Yeah, well, it's like a Space Ghost Coast to Coast thing where we're like interviewing, but we're making up questions and
then making it fit to what they already said or whatever.
Yeah.
Which will be easier than Space Ghost too, because it'll just be audio, so we can splice the different things together more easily without it being obvious, probably.
right, yeah.
That could be fun. I mean, it sounds like a bit of work.
Yeah.
A fair amount of work, but
Yeah.
it could still be fun.
Yeah, all of this would be quite a bit of work, I think.
Well, I guess I mean work outside of the making of the podcast,
Right.
while we're making the podcast and coming up with like...
Compared to some of the ideas we've had, this is definitely a more ambitious one.
It is somewhat ambitious, I guess, yeah. I'm also liking the idea of both a soap opera type plot and like a Lost type plot, where it's like super mysterious and crazy things are happening, and it's like, and now they just stumbled onto like a giant statue of a raccoon, but like a deadly like a killer raccoon that's really mean.
So I think
But also, can you believe that Jeremy's twin came back to life and had sex with his sister or whatever? Right?
I think you might just want to write a TV show. That's the impression I'm getting.
I might want to write a TV show that no one would make or watch. I mean, that's the idea that we're talking about,
Right.
basically.
Right.
This is your idea.
Yeah, no, we could also act, just incredulous each week. It's like, how is this show still on the air? How long has this show been on the air?
Right.
70 years? Who watches this besides us?
Right. And we could talk about, like, the special effects and be like, I can't believe a show made this cheaply actually had a pretty good, like, CGI spaceship full of ninjas that, landed on Terry as he was trying to have a hamburger at the local hamburger place, which is called
Terry's Hamburgers.
It's his own hamburger place. And that's also where he lives, so it's sort of weird to bring it up as a hamburger place. It was just his house, basically, but still.
He just has a sign on his door that says Terry's Hamburgers.
It's actually just, he has some hamburgers in the fridge, and they're labeled so no one will steal them, even though he lives alone. It says, Terry's Hamburgers, do not touch.
I was picturing it more like, since I've been watching a lot of Gilmore Girls lately, and there's an episode where car goes through the side of Luke's diner, so Kirk sets up Kirk's diner on the lawn outside because he's like, he saw a need and he filled it. And it's just people sitting at picnic tables.
To be honest, I was kind of picturing Terry as a Kirk type figure.
Yeah.
Even though I haven't really watched Gilmore Girls except when you're watching it, like incidentally when you're watching it. But he's got kind of a pretty consistent and straightforward doofus vibe.
Yeah.
And Terry, clearly. I mean, he didn't deserve to have a spaceship full of ninjas falling in his house.
Who does, really?
I can think of a few people, but he is a big doofus, Terry.
Yeah. But like a lovable doofus.
Right.
Yeah, no, I like this. I like this idea. I think it could be really fun.
Should we try to like come up with a synopsis like just now for an episode?
Yeah, we could do that. I was also thinking we should come up with a title for this podcast.
That's true. We need a title for the title will have to be a reference to something in the show, right? Something like a major common feature of the show. So I feel like we need a title for the show, or a title for the show within our show before we can come up with a title for the podcast.
Right.
About the show.
Right. Okay. Okay. So it seems like it should be set in a small town.
Definitely should be set in a small town. Maybe it should be named like the small town, something the small town, or like I don't know,
something that has I think we have to come up with the name of the small town and then base the title around that, like Last Train to Appleville or something like that.
Okay, Last Train to Appleville is pretty good.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good
because Appleville has to be a small town, right?
Well, of course, Appleville, yeah. Last Train to Appleville is actually pretty good.
Yeah. We could just go with that. Sometimes first idea is best idea.
Sometimes. Maybe we should, like, workshop it a little. Like, is there something that's like Appleville in the perfect small townness of that name, but slightly creepier? Like, Potatoville would be dumb, right? Or, I don't know, Berryville or something.
I don't know. I think I like Appleville.
Yeah, you're right. Appleville's good. And Last Train to Appleville is actually... Or should it be like Last Train Out of Appleville?
It's kind of long.
It's like 3 letters longer than the...
Yeah, but Last Train to Appleville implies that you're like excited to get to Appleville. I don't know. It makes me think of somebody like leaving the big city to head to Appleville.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Okay, so Last Train to Appleville. That's the show. It's Last Train to Appleville. What's the derivative of that? Like, is it like Appleville Station?
Oh, for our podcast.
For the podcast.
Yeah. I think it'd be great if it was just something really, really nerdy, like Talkin' Apples or something.
Talkin' Apples.
Yeah.
Talkin' Apples, because it's a talkback show. I don't feel like Talkin' Apples is quite there.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. I mean, I was suggesting it because I think it's really stupid.
Yeah. No, I understand. But I feel like it's just not quite enough of anything. Maybe it's like... I mean, Appleville Station seems okay. Or is there like...
Appleville Station is good. Or like Ticket to Appleville or something like that.
Ticket to Appleville. Or Appleville Express. I guess that's kind of the...
Yeah, I mean, we could also...
Or it could just be like Exploring Appleville. Or like...
Eyes on Appleville.
Eyes on Appleville. That's pretty good.
Eyes on Appleville.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, okay, that could be it. So, Eyes on Appleville. We're going to talk about Last Train to Appleville episode, 407.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We start with like episode 407, like
right.
the first,
like the latest episode or whatever, like hypothetically.
Yeah.
Right, like because they've been going for 40 years.
Yeah, and we've just now started this podcast.
Right. I guess we could act like we've been doing this podcast all along. No, it doesn't make sense.
It wouldn't. We'd have to be very old, and
which we aren't. We are not old.
We wouldn't. People, I mean, so. If the show's been going for 40 years. And we've been doing the podcast for 40 years, then, podcasts would have to have been around for 40 years.
That's also a complication of that.
And we'd have to have been old enough to make podcasts for 40 years.
Right. Okay, so we're just getting into the show. We're starting on the latest season, but like 7 episodes in or something, I guess.
Yeah.
That's
So
fine.
occasionally we do a retro episode where we go back and review an older episode.
Yeah.
Because we're making our way through the back catalog.
Yeah. I mean, we mentioned that before, right, with the Mr. T episode or
Right.
whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I do also just kind of think it's funny to start halfway through a season or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it could
we
be,
didn't bother watching the other episodes either. So
yeah, I mean, it could be like we just discovered this and we're so confused about this show. That could be the vibe of it. Like, we're really confused about this show, the fact that it's existed so long, we've never heard of it before, and we're starting partway through the season, so we don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, and we could ask the listeners to fill us in on things that, how did the storyline start? Why does he have the chainsaw?
Right.
Why is the bear there?
Right.
We could go back and watch the older episodes, but we'd like you, the listener.
No, actually, I think it would be awesome as part of it if we couldn't go back and watch the old episodes.
Oh, they're just not available
They're
anymore.
not available online. We can't find them online. The show is on like actual TV and only comes out once a week or whatever. But sometimes they play random reruns instead of a new episode.
Ah, okay,
Right,
to
so
make it even harder.
Right, so that's how we can get to like those old episodes. But I mean, obviously, we are making it up, so we do have access. But our characters that we're playing as watchers don't have access. We just, except for when they happen to show them.
Oh, I love this. This might be too
This
good.
might be an actually really good idea.
Yeah, this might legitimately be a really good idea.
All right. Well, I think we do probably need to wrap up here. So tune in next week when we'll be doing Eyes on Appleville. Possibly.
And
yeah, like us on iTunes or Apple Podcasts or whatever. And
follow us on social media.
Which we will have at some point.
Yes.
We haven't set that up yet as of this recording, but we'll add something maybe to this recording when we do.
We'll add something at the end.
Hey friends, as promised, here is how you can follow us on social media. You can just go to our internet homepage at www.coolpodcast.website. Yes, that is our URL, www.coolpodcast.website, to find our social media links. All right, I'll let you get back to the end of the episode. Rory is flailing all over the place, so we do need to wrap it up. So we will just say thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye. What was that podcast about? I'm trying to figure it out. What was that podcast about? Could you perhaps help me out? I was confused all throughout. Didn't catch what that was about.